A story for this Christmas season. Dear friends, as we gather in this blessed season of giving, I want to share with you a story that reminds me why the good Lord puts certain people in our paths just when we need them most. This happened last Christmas in Bend, Oregon. You know the place. Up in the mountains where the air's so clean it makes your lungs ache. It's about three folks who thought they were beyond saving a young woman named Lydia, who'd been passed around foster homes like a borrowed book, and an older couple, Walter and Maribel Hawthorne, who lost their baby girl 20-some years back and never quite found their way back to each other. Sometimes the Almighty works in mysterious ways, bringing broken people together not to fix them, but to show them they were never as broken as they believed. This is their story, and I pray it brings you the same comfort it brought me. Walter Hawthorne stood in his kitchen at 3 a.m, pulling open every drawer in search of something his hands remembered but his mind had lost. The old percolator sat cold on the stove. He'd forgotten to set it up the night before, the way Maribel always insisted water and Maxwell House ready, so all you had to do was turn on the flame. Mr. Hawthorne, the young woman appeared in the doorway, wearing his old lumber jacket over her nightgown. It's Lydia. Remember, I'm helping out while Mrs. Hawthorne is away. He studied her face the way you might study a map of a place you'd once visited. Brown eyes, patient like his mother's had been. She knew things about him, this young woman, but Lord help him, he couldn't place her. Emerald needs her lunch money for school, he said, the words coming from somewhere deep. From 1998, maybe, when things still made sense. I took care of it, Lydia said gently, guiding him to the kitchen chair, the one that wobbled unless you put the folded newspaper under the left leg. She's all set. Would you like some warm milk? My foster mother used to say it helped with sleep. Walter nodded, watching her move around his kitchen. No, not his kitchen. This place with its fancy granite counters wasn't the yellow kitchen on Maple Street where Maribel had hung those strawberry curtains from Woolworth's. Where's Mari? He asked. Lydia's hand paused on the milk bottle, real glass bottles. Maribel insisted on them from the dairy over on Sunrise Lane. She'll be back soon. She had to visit her sister. Helen died in '09. Her other sister, from California. Walter knew that was wrong somehow, but the thought slipped away like soap in the bathtub. He picked up his fountain pen, the Parker his father gave him when he got his chemistry degree, and began writing on the paper napkin. The words flowed even though he couldn't read them afterwards. Tell Marie about the roses. The roots aren't dead under all that snow. Lydia watched him write the same sentence 3 times before gently taking the pen. I'll tell her, I promise. You're a good girl, Walter said, patting her hand. Like the church ladies who bring those casseroles. You know, the ones green beans and those French onion things on top. Lydia turned away quickly, busying herself with the milk. She'd been in this house for 10 days now, each one bringing revelations that turned her world upside down. That manila folder hidden in Walter's old desk, the scholarship records, 17 names in his shaky handwriting, hers circled with a red pen. All those years believing nobody wanted her. And this man, this stranger, whose mind was slipping away like sand, had been watching over her from a distance. The microwave, another newfangled thing Maribel bought, beeped. Lydia set the warm milk in front of Walter in one of the good china cups, the ones with little blue roses that Maribel's mother had collected with S and H green stamps. Walter pulled out his wallet, worn leather soft as butter, and extracted a photograph. A little girl with blonde curls, laughing on the rope swing he'd hung from the oak tree. This is Emerald, he said, as if making introductions at church social. She passed on. I know, Lydia whispered. Fever of 104.7. Hospital was 43 miles over mountain roads. Black ice that night. His finger, knuckles swollen with arthritis, traced the child's face. Mari was holding her in the back seat, singing Amazing Grace. But sometimes hymns aren't enough, no matter how much faith you have. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the Kit Kat clock on the wall, its tail swishing back and forth like it had for 30 years. Why did you choose me? Lydia asked suddenly. She hadn't meant to say it out loud, but the question had been burning since she'd found those papers. Out of all the foster children in Arizona, why me? Walter looked up, and for a moment, Lord have mercy, his eyes cleared completely. She saw the professor he'd been, the businessman who'd built a fortune making medicines for children. You didn't cry, he said simply. At your great-aunt Renata's funeral. 10 years old, wearing that enormous dress someone from the church donation box gave you. Standing by the coffee urn for 3 hours while the Methodist ladies fussed over everyone else. You never took a blessed thing, not even when Mrs. Patterson offered you her famous snickerdoodles. Lydia's throat went tight. She remembered that funeral, the fourth one she'd attended as the foster child, nobody quite knew what to do with. Emerald was like that, Walter continued, his voice going distant like radio signals from far away. Even with the fever burning her up, she didn't cry, just watched us with those big eyes, like she was trying to memorize our faces for when she met Jesus. The milk sat untouched between them, skin forming on top the way it always does. Through the window, porch lights from the neighbors' houses made yellow squares in the darkness. Normal folks, asleep in their beds, not knowing that here in this kitchen, the past and present were having coffee together. Mr. Hawthorne, Lydia said carefully. What did you mean about the roses? But Walter was gone again, lost in whatever corridor his mind wandered these days. He hummed something maybe in the sweet by and by, the hymn Maribel used to sing while doing dishes. Lydia's phone lit up on the counter. A message from the employment office back in Phoenix. 3 missed calls from her landlord. The rent was due in 5 days, and here she sat in Oregon, watching over a man who thought his daughter was still alive. She turned the phone face down, through the window. She could see the guest house where Walter had been living these past 13 months. Maribel had moved him there when he called her Emerald for the 5th time in 1 week. Walter stood up, shuffled to the window. Someone's out there, Lydia looked. A light had come on in the guest house storage shed, not Walter's room, but the old garden shed where they used to keep the lawnmower. Probably just the motion sensor, she said. No, Walter said, clear as day. That's Mari. She goes there at night. Thinks I don't know. He smiled, sad and sweet. She's tending the roses I saved, the ones she thinks are dead. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Lydia's rental car climbed Mountain View Road, past the Safeway where gas was still $4.79 a gallon highway robbery. Her foster mother would have called it. 3 days since that phone call. Her fingernails found the grooves in the steering wheel where nervous hands had gripped too tight. The Hawthorne house sat back from the road. Cedar shingles gone silver with weather. Not showy like those new places the Californians built, but solid, the kind of house people raised families in for generations. Maribel stood on the front porch in a wool cardigan the color of oatmeal, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her insides from spilling out. You look like Eleanor, Maribel said when Lydia got out. Your mother, same way of tilting your head when you're uncertain. Lydia straightened, felt her neck pop. The older woman's eyes tracked the movement's sharp eyes that had probably counted pills for 40 years before counting millions. I didn't know you knew my mother well enough to notice. Second cousins. She came to my wedding in '94. Made her own dress yellow cotton with daisies. Maribel's fingers went to her throat, found the small gold cross that hung there. Walter said she looked like sunshine walking into our church. The name hung between them. Walter. Inside. The house smelled like lemon pledge and something baking coffee cake. Maybe the kind with cinnamon streusel. Every surface gleamed but felt hollow, like those model homes at the furniture store where nobody actually lived. Lydia's one suitcase bought at Goodwill, held together with duct tape, looked shameful on the genuine leather ottoman. Your room, Maribel said, leading her upstairs. The guest bed had enough pillows for a whole family. The bathroom had those fancy towels nobody actually uses, folded into shapes like the Holiday Inn tried to do. Supper's at 6 sharp. Maribel paused at the door. Her wedding ring caught the light still on her finger after everything. Just switched to her right hand like widow ladies did. I want to show you something first. They walked through to the kitchen windows. Beyond the covered pool nobody swam in anymore. Past the brick barbecue that hadn't held charcoal in years, stood a smaller building. Regular house lights burning inside despite the afternoon sun. The guest house, Maribel said. Walter lives there now. A shadow passed by the window, tall, stooped, watering something on the sill. When did he move out? 13 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days ago. Maribel's voice went flat as day-old soda. When he called me Emerald for the 5th time, the shadow in the guest house bent to pick something up. A book, maybe, or one of those composition notebooks from Woolworth's. He's writing, Lydia said. Always. Goes through 3 notebooks a month now. Can't read a word of it anymore. The letters don't connect right. Maribel turned from the window. He doesn't know you're coming. I thought we'd wait until 3 knocks at the back door. Soft, like knuckles on wood when you're not sure anyone's home. Then 2 more. Pause. 2 more. Maribel's coffee mug slipped. Coffee splashed on her house slippers, the quilted kind from JCPenney. That's Emerald's knock. She couldn't reach the doorbell. The first 3 days unfolded like pages in a church cookbook, each one familiar but precious. Mornings started with the percolator gurgling on the stove, while Maribel taught Lydia to make eggs the way Walter liked them, over easy, with the edges just crispy. Salt, but no pepper. Wheat toast from the bakery on 3rd Street, not that store-bought cardboard. He's particular, Maribel said, flipping an egg with the practice motion of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. Chemistry professor for 30 years. Everything has to be precise. They ate breakfast at the kitchen table, the good one. Solid oak from when furniture was built to last. Through the window, Lydia could see Walter in his garden, moving between bare rose bushes with a watering can, tending plants that had died years ago. Does he know they're gone? Some days, Maribel sipped her coffee Folgers. Nothing fancy. Other days he sees them blooming like it's 1998 all over again. After breakfast, Maribel would drive them around Bend in her Lincoln Continental, the burgundy one Walter bought her for their 25th anniversary. She knew everyone. Or everyone knew her, the lady from the pharmaceutical company who'd made good. At Peterson's Market, where the same family had run the register since 1962, Maribel introduced Lydia to everyone. This is my niece, Lydia, my precious niece from Arizona. The word precious came out fierce, like she was daring anyone to contradict it. Mr. Peterson, who still wore a bow tie to work like his father had, smiled. Family visiting for Christmas, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Yes, Maribel said, her hand finding Lydia's elbow. Family. They bought too much a ham big enough for 12 people. Sweet potatoes, green beans for casserole. The kind of groceries you buy when you're trying to fill something that food can't fill, at the checkout. Maribel told Mr. Peterson about starting her company, though surely he'd heard it before. 45 years old, fired from Walton's Pharmacy for lacking leadership potential, she laughed. But it had edges. I was living in a single wide in Madras, washing dishes at the truck stop on 97. That's a hard road, Mr. Peterson said, counting change into her palm. Walter would drive down from Portland every weekend, 3 hours each way. He'd sit at the counter for hours, ordering coffee he never drank, leaving $20 tips. Her voice softened. This was after our separation, after we lost Emerald. Back at the house, they cooked together. Maribel taught Lydia to chop onions properly, like you're playing piano. Use your knuckles as a guide, while she talked about the old days. Not the money days, but before, when she and Walter lived in the yellow house on Maple Street. 900 square feet, 1 bathroom. Emerald's nursery was a converted closet. But Lord, we were happy. She scraped carrots into hot oil. The sizzle made the windows fog. Walter would come home from teaching, pick up Emerald, dance her around the kitchen while I made supper. She'd laugh and laugh. What happened? Lydia asked, though she already knew the outline. Fever, January 15th, 1999. Started like nothing, just warm to the touch. By midnight, she was burning up. 104.7. Maribel's knife paused mid-chop. Walter drove. I held her in the back, singing hymns, Jesus loves me, over and over. 43 miles to the hospital. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. That evening, after pot roast that could have fed the Wednesday night church supper, Maribel brought out photo albums. The old kind with magnetic pages that yellow over time. Pictures of a blonde toddler in Oshkosh overalls, building sandcastles, riding Walter's shoulders, asleep in a hospital bed with tubes and wires. She was sick a lot, Maribel said. Weak immune system. We were at St. Charles Medical Center so often they knew us by name. You couldn't have known that night would be different. Maribel turned a page. Christmas morning, 1998. Emerald opening presents while Walter assembled a tricycle in the background. Instruction sheets spread on the floor. That concentrated look professors get. He still has those instructions, Maribel said. Saw them in the guest house last month. Laminated them. If you can believe it. Lydia wanted to ask why Maribel was in the guest house if Walter had been moved there 13 months ago. But something in the older woman's face warned her off. On the third night, after wine that tasted expensive, even to Lydia's untrained palate, Maribel walked her to her room, stopped at the door like she had something pressing on her chest. Tomorrow, she said. I need to tell you something tomorrow. About what? Maribel looked toward the window, where the guest house lights made yellow rectangles on the dark lawn. About why I really asked you here. She left before Lydia could respond. Through the walls. Lydia heard drawers opening and closing in Maribel's room, the sound of hangers sliding, suitcase zippers, down in the guest house. A shadow passed by the window. Walter, still awake at 11 p.m. She could see him clearly now, making tea with the careful movements of someone following a checklist. He set out 2 cups on the counter, waited. No one came for the second cup. He drank alone, washed both cups, dried them with a dish towel, put them away. The same routine. Probably. For 13 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Lydia pressed her palm against the cold window. Tomorrow, Maribel would tell her something that would change everything. She could feel it in the house's 2 clean surfaces, in the photographs all turned face down, in the way Maribel said precious niece like she was casting a spell against loss. In the guest house. Walter picked up his notebook again, wrote in those loose, disconnected letters that went nowhere, that said nothing, that meant everything to a man who couldn't stop trying to remember what he'd already forgotten. He looked up suddenly, straight at her window, waved, not at her, at someone he thought stood beside her, someone small, with blonde curls, who'd been gone for 25 years. Morning came gray through the kitchen windows. Maribel sat at the breakfast table with her phone propped against the sugar bowl, fingers sliding across the screen like she was dealing solitaire cards. The kitchen smelled of Maxwell House and something burning toast forgotten in the toaster. Look at this. She turned the phone toward Lydia. A photograph of a white boat, 3 decks high, American flag snapping in Caribbean wind. The Meridian, Margaret Vanderberg's husband bought it last spring. Lydia poured coffee into her mug, the one with praying hands on it, probably from some church fundraiser. The coffee was weak this morning. Maribel had forgotten to count the scoops. Pretty boat. Ship. Once they're over 100 feet, they're ships. Maribel picked up her cup, set it down without drinking. Her lipstick was already perfect at 7 in the morning that coral color ladies wore to Wednesday service. Margaret called yesterday. While you were at the grocery, the burned toast smell got stronger. Lydia popped up the toaster, scraped the black parts into the sink. Outside. Rain started, that Oregon December rain that falls straight down, patient as prayer. She invited me to join them, 2 weeks in the Caribbean, leaves tomorrow, well, today now, flying to Miami, then boarding. That sounds nice. Lydia's stomach pulled tight around the nothing she'd eaten for breakfast. A vacation would do you good. Maribel's fingers drummed on the table, the nervous pattern of someone about to confess something at prayer meeting. These women, Margaret, Susan Whitfield, Patricia Coleman, we all went to Oregon State together, back in the 70s. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the guest house. Her reflection in the glass looked older, smaller. When I was nobody, when I was stocking shelves at Bi-Mart after the divorce, they'd walk past me like I was furniture. Margaret once complained to my manager that I'd put her husband's heart medication in the wrong size bottle. But now they want you there. Now I own Cascade Pharmaceuticals. Now I'm worth... She stopped. Money changes how people see you. Not who you are, just how they see you. Lydia watched Maribel's thumb worry the edge of her coffee cup. Ceramic against skin. Over and over. You should go. Show them who you became. Maribel turned from the window. The morning light showed every line on her face, and she had to know it. But she stood there anyway. That's the thing. I need while I'm gone. Someone needs to be here. The coffee turned to acid in Lydia's throat. Walter needs someone. Not medical care, Patricia Hoffman from church. She's a retired nurse. She comes Tuesdays and Fridays to check his medications. Just someone to be here. Make sure he eats. Takes his pills with his breakfast. Simple things. You brought me here to babysit your ex-husband. Not babysit. Maribel's voice went tight. He knew your mother. They were friendly. Years back at church functions. He'd be comfortable with family around. The rental car keys sat on the counter next to the cookie jar shaped like a hen. 15 steps, and Lydia could be gone. Back to Phoenix. To her studio apartment where the air conditioner wheezed like an emphysema patient. To the employment office where nobody knew her name after 2 years. I brought you here under false pretenses. Yes. I'm not proud of it. But you're still going. Maribel's composure cracked like ice on a pond. Do you know what it's like watching someone you loved, someone brilliant, who could recite the periodic table backwards, who developed formulas that saved thousands of children reduced to writing gibberish in notebooks? He sets out Emerald's cereal bowl every morning. Honey Nut Cheerios. Exactly 1 cup, 1/4 cup of milk. So you run away. I survive. Maribel's voice hardened like January ground. That's what women like us do. Isn't it, foster kids and trailer park graduates? We survive however we can. The rain intensified. Gutters overflowed in waterfalls. Lydia stood. Her knees shook slightly, hunger or anger. She couldn't tell which. I'll pack my things. Please. Maribel caught her wrist. Her grip was stronger than it looked, probably from years of opening child-proof caps. Just meet him first, then decide. They walked across the wet lawn. Lydia's canvas shoes soaked through immediately. She'd meant to buy proper shoes, but never had the money. Maribel knocked on the guest house door 3 firm raps, like a school principal. Come in. Mari. Walter sat at a card table, fountain pen in hand, surrounded by notebooks and loose papers. The room smelled like Old Spice and Bengay, with something underneath, maybe the musty smell of papers aging. Books everywhere, most of them chemistry textbooks with broken spines and margins full of notes. On the refrigerator, the old Kenmore that hummed like it was praying hung newspaper clippings, all yellowed, all featuring young faces in graduation caps. His eyes found Lydia. Blue like faded work shirts, but clear today. Focused. You're Eleanor Crowell's daughter, from Tucson. Lydia's knees locked. How did you... The funeral, 2006, Mount Calvary Baptist. You stood by the coffee urn for 3 hours. Never took anything. Not even when Mrs. Patterson brought out her lemon bars. He opened a drawer in the card table, pulled out a manila folder thick as a hymnal. Please, sit. The folder contained documents, scholarship applications, bank transfers, a photograph Lydia at her college graduation, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. Her face turned towards something outside the frame. Emerald Hope Foundation, he said, running his finger under the words. Named for my daughter. You were recipient number 12. Lydia's hands shook as she lifted the bank transfer record. $50,000, transferred in 4 installments. The mysterious scholarship that had appeared when she was about to drop out. Work full-time at Walmart. Why? Walter looked at Maribel, then back to Lydia. Because I watched 27 children stand alone at funerals. But you were the only one who didn't cry. just like Emerald, even with the fever burning her up. She didn't cry, just watched us, trying to memorize our faces for heaven. Maribel made a sound like air leaving a tire. She turned toward the window where the rain streaked everything blurry. "I've been documenting your progress," Walter continued, showing her pages of notes. The early ones were neat, precise. The later ones deteriorated into loose symbols. Marketing degree, graduated with honors, working at Henderson Properties now, though they don't appreciate you properly. "You've been watching me." "Watching over you," he corrected. "There's a difference, like a guardian angel. Except I'm just a man with too much money and not enough family." Thunder rolled across the mountains. The overhead light flickered. Walter didn't seem to notice, turning pages in his journal. 17 children total, all graduated. 3 became doctors. 1 teaches kindergarten. She sends me pictures every Christmas of her class. 15 little ones in their Christmas pageant. He smiled. Emerald would have been 31 now. Maybe a teacher too. She loved showing her dolls things, teaching them their letters. Maribel walked out. The door clicked shut. Through the window, Lydia watched her cross the lawn, rain plastering her styled hair flat against her skull. "She can't bear it," Walter said softly. "Seeing me like this. I'm a reminder of everything we lost." He stood, walked to the stove, a 1970s model that had 4 working burners and an oven that ran 50 degrees hot. Put the kettle on. His movements were careful, deliberate, like someone following steps they'd memorized. "Would you like tea? I make it every day at 10:15. Emerald snack time." "Mr. Hawthorne." "Walter, please." He pulled down 2 cups from the cupboard, then a third. A child's cup with Winnie the Pooh on it, faded from thousands of washings. Set it at an empty place. "For Emerald, she'll be hungry after kindergarten." The kettle whistled. He poured with steady hands, added 2 sugar cubes to the child's cup. "She takes after Maribel," he said conversationally. "Same stubborn chin, same way of crossing her arms when she's thinking hard about something." Lydia sipped the tea. It burned her tongue. Tasted like copper pennies. "Walter, Emerald isn't—" "I know." His eyes sharpened, suddenly present, like tuning in a radio station. "I know she's gone. But sometimes knowing and feeling live in different counties, and I lost the map between them." He picked up the 3rd cup, carried it to the sink, poured it out, washed it with Dawn dish soap, dried it with a towel that said, "Bless this kitchen," put it back in the cupboard. "Tomorrow I won't remember you," he said, "but I'll remember there was someone kind here, someone who didn't judge an old man for talking to ghosts." A knock at the door. Maribel, soaked through, makeup running in black rivers. "The boat," she said. "I'm supposed to leave for the airport in 3 hours." The first morning alone, Lydia woke to knocking. 4:27 a.m. according to the wind-up alarm clock on the nightstand. She pulled on Maribel's left-behind bathrobe, thick terry cloth, smelling of White Shoulders perfume, and stumbled downstairs. Walter stood at the back door in striped pajamas and rubber boots, the kind fishermen wear. He held a watering can, the metal kind with the long spout. "The roses," he said. "If we don't water them before sunrise, they'll burn." No roses in the garden, just thorny stalks, cut back to stumps. But she followed him outside. The grass was cold and wet. Her bare feet went numb in seconds. He moved between the dead bushes with practiced steps, 7 here. Turn left. 12 there, pouring water from the can at precise angles, counting under his breath. 7 seconds each, he murmured. Emerald liked to count with me. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Back inside, he started the coffee, not instant real coffee, grinding the beans by hand in an old wooden grinder that squeaked with each turn. 4 level scoops into the percolator basket, water from the tap, but he let it run first, testing the temperature with his finger. Sit, he said, pushing a mug toward her. Heavy ceramic, the kind diners used to use. You look peaked. The coffee was perfect. Strong enough to float a horseshoe, her foster father would have said. She watched Walter spread peanut butter on white bread Wonder Bread. the kind with no nutritional value, and cut it into triangles, arranging them on a plate with the points facing the center like a star. "Emerald's breakfast," he explained, then caught himself, his face clouded like weather coming in. "No, that's wrong. Emerald is—" He gripped the counter edge. "Help me remember." "She passed away. Walter, in 1999. He nodded slowly. "The fever. Roads were icy." "No." He frowned. "Roads were clear. I lied about the ice. Made it seem like nobody's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. Meningitis. That's what the death certificate said. But I keep thinking if we'd left 10 minutes earlier, if I'd driven faster." He picked up a triangle of sandwich, set it down. "Do you know what it's like, playing the same moment over and over, changing one thing each time, trying to get a different ending?" By the third morning, Lydia knew the routine. Up at 4:27, water the dead roses, coffee with the finger test, triangle sandwiches. Then Walter would shower. She could hear the water running exactly 12 minutes, and emerge dressed in the same uniform brown corduroys. Blue flannel shirt, wool cardigan that had patches on the elbows. "Morning documentation," he'd announce, like a train conductor calling stops. The journals filled 3 shelves in the guest house, black composition books, each spine labeled with dates in degrading handwriting. The early ones from 2010 were crisp, scientific, chemical formulas, business plans, ideas for new medications, all pediatric fever reducers, antibiotics, vaccines. "Look at this," Walter said on day 4, showing her a journal from 2014. His finger traced under the words, though the writing was getting shaky even then. September 3rd, Emerald Hope Foundation, recipient 12, LC, Arizona State University. Her initials, her school, the scholarship that saved her from dropping out, from becoming another foster kid statistic. "You kept track." "Everyone." He flipped pages, names, amounts, graduation dates. Sarah Martinez, nursing degree, working at Phoenix Children's Hospital. Marcus Chen, engineering, designing water systems for poor communities. Angela Thompson, special education teacher. His finger stopped on each name like he was blessing them. 17 children who stood alone at funerals. Now none of them alone. Why funerals? Walter walked to the window. Outside, mist was rolling down from the mountains, making everything soft and uncertain. That's where you see them, the forgotten ones. Adults cluster together like sheep, sharing their grief, passing casseroles. But children stand on the edges, not understanding why everyone's crying, not understanding why nobody sees them standing there. Like me at Aunt Renata's funeral. You wore a dress 5 sizes too big, safety pins holding it at the shoulders, navy blue, but faded to almost gray. He turned from the window. You stood by that coffee urn for 3 hours. Mrs. Patterson offered you food 4 times. You said, "No thank you, ma'am," every time. Why? Lydia's throat went tight. Taking meant owing. I'd learned that by then. Foster families give you things. Keep track. Remind you what you cost them. Better not to take anything. Emerald was like that at the hospital. The nurses brought her popsicles, orange ones, her favorite. She'd hold them until they melted, never taking a bite. Said she was saving them for later. Afternoons brought garden walks. Walter knew every plant despite their current state dormant, dead or dying. He'd stop at the big oak tree, put his hand on the bark like greeting an old friend. Planted this when Emerald was born. Maribel insisted. Said trees outlive people. So something of our baby would always be here. The tree was massive now, probably 40 feet tall, branches reaching toward the guest house. Does Maribel visit it? She can't bear to look at it. Crosses the yard with her eyes closed sometimes. He moved to a patch of bare earth, knelt down, pressed his palm to the soil. Her rose garden was here. 37 bushes. She ripped them out the day I forgot. Forgot what? July 15th, Emerald's birthday, 2 years ago. I woke up thinking it was March. Couldn't understand why Maribel was crying, holding a cake. His hand shook against the dirt. She'd made it from scratch. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Emerald's favorite. The destroyed garden stretched 20 feet in each direction. Just dirt now. But Lydia could see the patterns still where the paths had been. where the birdbath had stood. "I saved them," Walter said suddenly. "What?" "The roses." "Maribel thinks they're gone, but roots survive. In the storage shed. 3 years I've been keeping them alive." He led her to the old garden shed behind the guest house. Behind a lawnmower that hadn't run since the Bush administration, behind boxes of Christmas decorations, stood rows of buckets, roses, cut back to stumps, but alive, roots wrapped in wet burlap. "Every night I water them. She'll want them back someday." "How do you know?" "Because grief isn't a straight line. It circles back. She'll come around again to wanting beauty." Evenings were harder. As the sun went down, Walter's confusion deepened. He'd search for car keys he no longer had, insist Emerald was waiting at school, set the table for 3. On day 6, Lydia found him in the kitchen at midnight, fully dressed, scrambling eggs. "The presentation," he said, shuffling papers that were just grocery store flyers. "The board meets at 9. Where's my data on the pediatric fever reducer?" "The meeting was postponed," Lydia said, gently taking the pan off the heat. "But the children need medicine. We have to help the children." She guided him back to bed, his elbow thin under her hand. He gripped her wrist at his bedroom door. "Don't let me forget the formula. It's important. I won't let you forget. Promise. I promise." Day 7 brought unusual clarity. Walter was waiting in the main house kitchen when she came down. Coffee already made, 2 cups poured. "I want to show you something." The folder was thick, held together with rubber bands. Inside photographs, not of Emerald, of her. School photos he'd somehow obtained. Her college graduation taken from across the field. A newspaper clipping about the dean's list. A printout from the Henderson Properties website showing her at her desk. "How did you get these?" "Private investigator, Bob Harrison, works out of Salem." Ethical boundaries get fuzzy when you're trying to save children by proxy. He turned a page. This is from last year. A photo of her at her desk, eating lunch alone, reading a paperback novel. "That's stalking, Walter." "Yes." No defensiveness, just agreement. "But I needed to know you were okay, all 17 of you. My chance to get it right." "Get what right?" "Saving a child, I couldn't save mine. Maybe I could save others." She studied the photos. Years of her life documented by a stranger who felt more like family than any foster placement ever had. "You did save us. Money isn't salvation, just opportunity." He closed the folder. "You saved yourselves. I just cleared some rubble from the path." On day 8, Patricia Hoffman arrived. Tuesday, like Maribel had promised. Wide-hipped woman who'd raised 4 boys, ran the church nursery for 30 years. She checked Walter's blood pressure while he told her about Emerald's Christmas concert. "She's playing a shepherd," he said. "Has 3 lines to memorize." "That's wonderful. Mr. Hawthorne." Patricia drew blood. Movements, efficient. Shepherds are very important. After Patricia left, Walter seemed depleted, sat at his desk, pen in hand, staring at blank paper. "I can't remember what I'm supposed to write." "Your journal, daily documentation. About what?" "Everything, Emerald, the business, the children you helped." He nodded, began writing. Lydia looked over his shoulder. The words weren't words anymore, just shapes, meaning lost in loops and trembles. But his face was peaceful, the act of writing enough even if the words went nowhere. That night, Lydia's phone lit up. Message from Maribel, sent from somewhere with bad service. Just photos. Sunset over water. Women in sundresses holding drinks with umbrellas in them. No text. Just images of a life Lydia couldn't imagine. Day 9. Walter knocked at 4:27, same as always. But when Lydia opened the door, he studied her face without recognition. "I'm looking for my wife. Is Mari home?" "She's traveling. I'm Lydia. I'm staying here to..." "Lydia." He said it like tasting something familiar but not quite placing the flavor. "I know that name." He walked past her to the kitchen, began making coffee. The same routine, but he narrated each step. 4 scoops, water just before boiling. 4 minutes to steep. He looked at her. Someone should write this down. "Should I?" "Someone should remember how to do things right, in case I forget." They drank coffee in silence. Then Walter stood, walked to a drawer, pulled out an envelope, her name on it in shaky handwriting. "A man came yesterday," he said. "Told me to give this to you." "Walter, you wrote this." He frowned. "Did I when?" "I don't know." "Well, it has your name. Must be important." He handed it to her. "Read it when I'm sleeping. Not death sleeping, regular sleeping." That afternoon, during his nap, Lydia held the envelope. Inside, she could feel multiple pages, thick paper. Through the window, she saw movement in the storage shed. The door stood open. She walked across the grass, peered inside. Maribel stood among the preserved roses, watering can in hand, still wearing the same dress she'd left in 9 days ago. Tears running down her face as she tended plants she thought she'd destroyed. Maribel's hands jerked. Water splashed across her good leather pumps, the ones she wore to church board meetings. She turned. Mascara had run down both cheeks in black lines like prison bars. "You never left," Lydia said. "Made it to Portland Airport. Sat in short-term parking for 3 hours." Maribel set down the watering can. Her hands shook like leaves before a storm. Couldn't even get out of the car. The storage shed smelled of earth and damp burlap, like a root cellar. The preserved roses lined the walls, hundreds of root balls Walter had saved, each one tagged with Maribel's own handwriting from years ago. Queen Elizabeth, planted May 1997. Emerald's first birthday. Maribel's voice cracked on the words. He saved them all. 3 years he's been watering them. Every night. "I know. I've been watching." Maribel moved to another rose, touched the label gently. "Mr. Lincoln, June 1998. The day she took her first steps." She looked at Lydia, and in the dim light filtering through the dusty window, she looked every one of her 67 years. "I've been staying at the Best Western on Highway 20, driving here after dark, sitting in my car watching him through the windows." "That's pathetic, cowardly. Human," Maribel laughed, but it came out like a cough. "I paid $40,000 for that boat reservation, non-refundable, all to impress women who whispered behind my back at Oregon State, called me that girl from the trailer park." Footsteps on gravel. They both turned. Walter stood in the doorway, clearer than Lydia had seen him in days, his blue eyes focused, present, like someone had cleaned fog off a window. "Mari," not a question, statement of fact. "You came back." "I never left, Walt." He stepped into the shed, moved between the roses with careful steps, checking each bucket. "The roots are still alive. They go deeper than the hurt." "Walt, I remember today." He touched his temple with 2 fingers. "Everything's clear. Won't last maybe an hour, maybe less. But right now, I know who you are, who I am, what we lost." Maribel's knees buckled. She sat hard on an overturned apple crate. Walter got down on his knees in front of her, a 71-year-old man kneeling on concrete. His hand found hers. "It wasn't your fault. I was holding her, if I'd noticed the fever earlier." "No." His voice was professor firm. "The doctor said even if we'd left at the first sign of fever, even if the roads had been perfect, even if the hospital was next door, bacterial meningitis, too aggressive. I've done the math 10,000 times. Mari, no scenario saves her." Maribel pulled her hand away. "You don't remember doing that math. Not the recent calculations, but the early ones when my mind still worked. 2011, 2012. He stood, knees popping like firecrackers, pulled a journal from a shelf, one of his old ones, from when his handwriting was still neat. Page after page, distance to hospital, speed limits, fever progression rates, all ending the same. He opened to a bookmarked page. Equations filled the margins. At the bottom, in his old steady handwriting, no possible intervention would have changed outcome. Must accept, must forgive, must go on. You never showed me this. You weren't ready. Neither was I." He set the journal down gently. "We needed someone to blame. You blamed me for driving too slow. I blamed myself for the same thing. Easier than blaming God or chance or the simple fact that sometimes children die." Lydia stood frozen by the door, afraid to move, afraid breathing too loud might shatter whatever moment of clarity had descended on Walter. "You saved others, though," Maribel said. We both did. I found your records. Mari, hacked into your company computer, still remembers some things from my MIT days. A ghost of his old smile. Same children, same funerals. We were both circling the same grief, trying to fill the same hole. He looked at Lydia. She was number 12 on my list, number 8 on yours. We both chose her. Both paid for her education, probably twice over. Lydia's knees went weak. She grabbed the doorframe. Both of you, Maribel nodded. Different foundations, different banks. We probably paid your tuition twice. Why didn't you tell each other? We weren't speaking by then, Walter said. Grief builds walls. Blame builds them higher. He pulled an envelope from his shirt pocket, the same one from earlier. Lydia's name in shaking letters. Read this now, he said. While I can still answer questions, if you have them. She opened it with trembling fingers. 3 pages of handwriting, some parts clear, others deteriorating. The top of the first page was dated 10 days ago, before she'd arrived. Lydia, if you're reading this, I'm still here but not here. The mind is going, but the heart remembers. Funny how that works. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I remember the exact shade of blue Emerald's eyes were like cornflowers. Maribel's grandmother grew them. First, the facts you deserve, July 15th, 1999. Temperature 104.7 at 11 p.m. We left the house at 11:47. I know because I looked at the kitchen clock, thinking we had time. Emerald, 3 years old, in Maribel's arms in the back seat. Pink pajamas with bears on them. She was lucid until mile 32. Then the seizure started. I drove 97 miles per hour on Highway 20. Maribel sang Jesus Loves Me over and over. Emerald died at 12:51 a.m. in the ER. The doctor was young, maybe 30. He cried with us. I lied about the roads being icy. They were clear. Perfect. I just needed a reason it took us so long. That wasn't my fault. Second fact. The scholarships. I've watched you for 14 years, not stalking guarding, like a lighthouse keeper, making sure you had what you needed to find shore. Every graduation, every job, every small victory documented. You were child number 12 of 17, the one who reminded me most of Emerald, not in looks but in spirit. That quality of watching the world like you're memorizing it for later. Third fact. My will, updated last month. There's provision for you, not charity, inheritance. What I would have spent on Emerald's life, college, wedding, house, grandchildren, all of it compressed into one number, enough that you'll never fear losing your home again. Now, the harder truth. You think you're here because Maribel needed a caretaker. She thinks she brought you here for me. You're both wrong. You're here because God puts broken people together, not to fix each other, but to show each other they were never as broken as they believed. You don't earn love by being useful. Lydia, you don't earn it by caregiving or sacrifice or making yourself small enough not to be a burden. You were worthy of love the moment you stood by that coffee urn, hungry but too proud to take what wasn't freely given. Emerald taught me that. 3 years old, burning with fever, and she spent her last hour trying to comfort us, patting Maribel's face, smiling at me. We thought we were the parents, the protectors, but she was protecting us from the weight of her leaving. Don't be Emerald. Don't be the child who comforts the adults. Be Lydia, whoever that is, when you stop trying to deserve what was always yours. Thank you for these days, however many we have left. You've given me what I thought impossible, the chance to be a father again. Imperfect, confused, often lost, but present. The roses will bloom. Plant them with Maribel. She needs to put something in the ground that will grow. With love, the unconditional kind. Walter Hawthorne. Your sometimes father, P.S. The storage shed has more than roses. Back left corner. Box marked Emerald's things. Inside, a trust fund document. Your name was added in 2014. Maribel will be furious I never told her. Let her be angry. It's better than grief. Lydia set down the letter. Through the shed window, she could see Maribel digging in the empty rose bed, her good dress ruined with dirt. Walter's clarity was already fading. She could see it in his eyes, the fog rolling back in. Walter, I need to find something, he said vaguely. Something important. Behind them, footsteps. Patricia Hoffman stood in the doorway, medical bag in hand. Mr. Hawthorne, you missed your afternoon medications. He looked at her without recognition. Do I know you? I'm Patricia, from church. Which church? Patricia's eyes found Lydia's. In them. A message. This is different. This is worse. Day 12. Lydia woke to silence. No knock at 4:27. No Walter at the door with his watering can. The old alarm clock on the nightstand ticked loud as her heart beat, the wind-up kind with bells on top that Maribel said came from Woolworth's before they closed. She pulled on yesterday's jeans and the cream sweater that now smelled like Walter's house, Old Spice and coffee and something medicinal. Down the hall, past the photographs of Emerald at every age, past the closed door to Maribel's empty room. Walter sat in the guest house kitchen, fully dressed in his uniform brown corduroys, blue flannel, the cardigan with elbow patches. But something was wrong. He stared at his hands like they belonged to a stranger, turning them over, studying the liver spots and swollen knuckles. Mr. Hawthorne, his head snapped up. The blue had almost disappeared from his eyes, pupils so wide they looked black. His mouth worked, no sound coming out at first. Who are you? The words came out sharp. Why are you in my house? I'm Lydia. Remember, I'm helping while Mrs. Hawthorne is... Get out. He stood fast. The kitchen chair fell backwards, hit the linoleum with a crack that made her jump. I don't know you. Get out of my house right now. Walter, it's okay. Where's my wife? What did you do with Mari? His hand went to the knife block on the counter. The bread knife, old but sharp. She'd watched him hone it just yesterday on the whetstone he kept by the sink. His fingers wrapped around the handle. Where is she? What did you people do to her? Lydia backed toward the door. Her sneakers squeaked on the floor, that linoleum from the 70s, with the flower pattern worn through in spots. She's at the main house. I can get her for you. Liar. Mari left. 13 months. He stopped, confused by his own words. No, that's wrong. She was just here, making breakfast. I smell the eggs. No eggs. No smell except the musty scent of a house where someone was slowly forgetting how to live. You're one of them. The knife shook in his grip. Morning light from the window caught the blade. From the pharmaceutical company. Want my formulas? I won't give them to you. Those are for the children. I don't want your formulas. Walter. Then why are you here? The truth sat in her throat like a stone. Because Maribel was afraid. Because she was supposed to be on a boat with women who hated her. Because 17 children got scholarships from a man who couldn't save his own daughter. I'm here to help with the roses. Walter's face changed, not recognition, but something deeper. The knife lowered slightly. The roses are dead. Everything's dead. Emerald. The roses. My mind. He looked at the knife in his hand like he'd never seen it before. Set it down on the counter, gentle as laying down a baby. All dead. He walked to the window. Outside. Maribel was in the garden, earbuds in, digging holes for plants that wouldn't go in the ground until spring. She couldn't hear them, 20 feet and a lifetime away. That woman, Walter said, pointing. His finger left a smudge on the glass. She's destroying my yard. That's Mrs. Hawthorne. Maribel, your wife. My wife is young, beautiful, sings while she cooks. He turned from the window, and Lydia saw tears running down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them. Maybe didn't know they were there. That woman is old. The word hung between them. Old. The thing Maribel feared most, not death, but the dying. The slow fade Walter was living. He wandered to his desk, picked up a journal from 2015 when his writing was starting to deteriorate, threw it across the room, then another. Years of trying to hold on. Now scattered like leaves after a storm. These aren't mine. Someone's been writing nonsense in my books. He opened more journals, tearing pages. The sound of ripping paper filled the room. Lydia grabbed his wrists. His skin was hot, fevered, though Patricia had checked his temperature yesterday normal. Stop, please stop. Don't touch me. He pulled away, stumbled. His hip hit the desk corner hard enough to bruise. The sound he made wasn't pain, it was fear. Pure fear, like a child in the dark who doesn't understand why morning won't come. "You're safe," Lydia said. "You're home. You're safe." "I want to go home." "You are home." "No, home with Mari and Emerald. The yellow house, 900 square feet. The toilet that runs unless you jiggle the handle." Tears and snot now. Dignity gone. "I can't find it. I've been looking, but I can't find the way back." "Tell me about the house." He sat on the floor, just collapsed there among the torn pages. Started talking. The address, 1512 Maple Street. The squeaky third stair. The strawberry curtains from Woolworth's. The kitchen table from Salvation Army with the short leg. His chemistry textbook underneath keeping it level. An hour passed. Maybe more. His voice grew hoarse. But he kept talking. Building that yellow house word by word, memory by memory. The nursery that used to be a closet. Clouds he painted on the ceiling that looked like sheep. The neighbor's beagle that barked at everything. Then, sudden as a door slamming, he stopped. "I don't remember what I was saying." "The yellow house, what yellow house?" The fog had rolled back in, complete this time. He looked around at the torn journals scattered on the floor. "Someone made a mess," he said, disapproving. "Maribel won't like that." He stood, brushed off his corduroys, walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on. The same routine, even lost. "Would you like tea?" he asked Lydia. "I'm sorry, I don't remember your name." "Lydia? Pretty name, biblical. Acts chapter 16. She helped him clean up the journals, some pages salvageable, most destroyed. He hummed while they worked, Amazing Grace, the version they sing at Baptist funerals. Evening came early, the way it does in December, gray light going blue, going black. Walter sat at his desk with a fresh journal, writing loops that meant nothing. Patricia arrived for her evening check. Took his blood pressure, pulse, temperature, all normal, but her face when she looked at Lydia said different. "Call me if anything changes," Patricia said. "Anything at all, day or night." After Patricia left, Walter looked up from his journal. For a moment, just a moment, his eyes cleared, like someone had wiped fog off a window. Lydia, her name. He knew her name. "Tell Maribel something for me." "She's here. I can get her." "No. Tell her later. Tell her," he gripped the desk edge. "Tell her I forgive her. For being angry about Emerald. For blaming me. For the divorce. All of it. I forgive it all. Walter. And tell her I forgive myself too. That's harder. Forgiving yourself for living when your child didn't." His knuckles were white on the desk. "But I forgive myself." The clarity was already fading. She could see it happening like watching ice form on a window. "Who are you?" he asked, polite as a church usher. "Are you here about the roses?" Outside, Maribel's car started. The Lincoln Continental's engine had a particular sound, a rattle when it first turned over that Walter had always said he'd fix but never did. "Someone's leaving," Walter said, looking toward the window. "That's Mrs. Hawthorne?" "Hawthorne. I know that name." He touched his chest. "That's me, isn't it? I'm Hawthorne." The taillights disappeared down the driveway. Lydia stood alone with a man who'd just delivered what might be his last message, and the person who needed to hear it had just driven away. Through the window, she saw lights coming on in the main house. But that was impossible. Maribel had just left. Someone else was in the house. "What problem?" Lydia pulled a folding chair next to Walter's desk. The metal seat was cold through her pajama bottoms. Papers spread across the desk like tarot cards, legal documents, bank statements, all with official seals. "The trust requires 2 signatures, mine and Maribel's." Walter's fountain pen moved across paper in the steady script she remembered from his early journals. "I forged hers, back in 2014 when my hands were steadier." "That's fraud, yes, federal crime, technically, but love makes criminals of us all sometimes." He showed her the signature line, Maribel Hawthorne, in flowing cursive. "I practiced for 3 weeks, bought the same pen she uses Waterman, with blue-black ink. But lawyers notice things, especially lawyers handling $2 million. $2 million? What we would have spent on Emerald over a lifetime. Piano lessons, summer camps, college, wedding, helping with her first house. His pen stopped moving. Funny how you can price a life that never got lived. Headlights swept across the window. The Lincoln Continental's engine, Lydia knew that sound now. That particular rattle when Maribel turned it off. Car door slamming, footsteps on gravel, quick and determined. She's back, Walter said. Good. We need her real signature. The one she makes now, angry and sharp. Maribel entered without knocking. Her good dress was torn at the hem, mud splattered up to her knees, pine needles in her hair. You're clear, she said to Walter. Not a question. For now, maybe an hour, maybe less. He pushed the papers toward her. Sign these. She read, one hand rising to her throat where the gold cross usually hung. It was gone, chain broken, or lost. This is Walter. You can't give a stranger $2 million? Not a stranger. Our daughter's replacement. He said it matter of fact, like stating a chemical formula. Not replacement, wrong word. Our daughter's echo, the one who lived. You forged my signature. Poorly. Your M is different now. Sharper, like you're stabbing the paper. His voice stayed gentle. Sign it, before I forget why it matters. Maribel picked up his fountain pen. Her hand shook. Ink spotted the paper. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have wanted to help, to turn it into one of your projects, with spreadsheets and meetings and oversight committees. He touched the papers. This was mine, my grief, my choice. Sign. Maribel signed. Quick, sharp, M. Angry, like he'd said. The rest of the name flowing after like water breaking through a dam. There, she said. Legal now. Lydia. Walter turned to her, his eyes already starting to cloud, like breath on a mirror. I need you to understand something while I can explain. The money isn't payment. Not for taking care of me. Not for being here. It's... His face changed. Lydia watched it happen, the confusion rolling in. Slow but inevitable. It's what? She asked. He blinked, looked at the papers. What are these? Documents, Maribel said quickly. Old documents, nothing important. Oh, he stood up. I should water the roses. Morning soon. It's midnight, Walt. Then I'm late. He walked past them, out into the dark. Maribel grabbed the signed papers, pressed them to her chest. How long was he clear? 6, 7 minutes. That's all I get. 7 minutes of my husband back. She followed Walter outside. Lydia watched through the window as Maribel caught up to him by the empty rose beds. He was kneeling in the dirt, pouring water from an empty can he'd forgotten to fill it. Let me help, Maribel said, taking the can. Do I know you? Sometimes. That's nice. Sometimes is better than never. They stood together in the dark. Then Maribel did something unexpected. She kicked off her church shoes, good leather flats that cost more than Lydia's monthly rent, and stood barefoot in the cold dirt. What are you doing? Walter asked. Feeling for the roots. You said they go deep. I wanted to check. And? You're right. I can feel them, waiting under there. Walter nodded like this made perfect sense. Things wait. That's what they do when they can't grow. They wait for better weather. Lydia joined them outside. December air bit through her thin pajamas. Maribel was crying, not sobbing, just steady tears that caught the porch light. I never went to the airport, Maribel said to Lydia. Couldn't even pretend that much. Drove to the Best Western out on Highway 20. Sat in the parking lot for 3 hours in my good dress. Called Margaret Vanderberg. Told her I had food poisoning. What did she say? She said, Thank God, we were all dreading having you there. You always make everything about that dead child of yours. Maribel laughed, sound like glass breaking. $40,000 I supposedly spent on that reservation. You know what I actually did with it? What? Nothing. Never made the reservation at all. I've been pretending to run away for so long. I convinced myself I could actually do it. Walter had wandered to the oak tree, put his hand on the bark, head tilted like listening to something only he could hear. The tree remembers, he called out. Even when I forget. Maribel walked to him, put her hand over his on the bark. What does it remember? A little girl, blonde, laughing. She was here once. Yes. Was she happy? Maribel's composure cracked. She pressed her face against Walter's shoulder. He stood still, confused but not alarmed, patting her back with his free hand. It's all right, he said. Whatever it is, the Lord works it all for good eventually. Not this, not losing her. Everything, even that. We just can't see the pattern from here, like looking at the back of a quilt, all knots and threads going nowhere. But flip it over. He trailed off, lost the thought. Lydia stood apart, watching them. Two people who'd built a fortune, lost a child, divorced, and were still somehow connected by roots deeper than memory. Her phone vibrated. Text from Phoenix. Final warning, January 1st, no exceptions. She deleted it. Phoenix felt like another planet now. That studio apartment with roaches like pets. The job where nobody knew her name. Lydia. Maribel had pulled away from Walter, was walking over. I need to tell you something. About why I really brought you here. To take care of Walter? No. Well, yes, but deeper than that. She looked back at Walter, who was now sitting on the ground, sorting leaves into piles. I'm terrified of dying alone. Ridiculous for someone worth $47 million. But there it is. I thought if I could recreate family, bring you here, make you need us, I could trick myself into not being alone. But then you were going to leave? But then I sat in a Best Western parking lot, too scared to go forward, too proud to come back. She pulled something from her pocket. A cruise brochure, water-stained and torn. You know what I realized, sitting there? What? I've been running from Walter's disease like it's contagious. Like if I watch him forget, I'll forget too. But what I'm really running from is the mirror. Seeing myself get old. Seeing myself heading toward the same darkness. Walter stood up. Grass stains on his corduroys. Walked over with sudden purpose. Maribel, he said. Clear, present. Both women turned. Walt, I've been thinking about the roses. We should plant them. Now it's December. No, spring, but we should prepare now, all three of us. You want me to stay? Lydia asked. Want has nothing to do with it. Need. He touched his temple. I'm losing words, losing thoughts, like trying to hold water in your hands. But I know this, we need witnesses, someone to remember we were here, that we loved, that we tried. The clarity was already fading. His shoulders slumped. I should sleep, he said vaguely. Church tomorrow. Today is Tuesday. Walt. Is it well? Every day's good for church. He walked toward the guest house, stopped, turned back. You're good women, both of you, whoever you are. They watched him go inside, heard the lock turn. I'm calling my lawyer tomorrow, Maribel said. Setting up the Lydia's Light Foundation, full scholarships for foster children, all of them. That's generous. That's guilt. But guilt that does good is better than guilt that rots inside you. She looked at Lydia. Will you stay? Not as help, as family. The messy kind that doesn't match, like dishes from garage sales. My rent's overdue in Phoenix. That's not an answer. I know. Yes, I'll stay. They stood in the dark garden, through the guest house window. Walter's shadow moved past, writing in his journals again. Those endless loops that meant nothing and everything. He proposed to me under that oak, Maribel said suddenly. 1994. Said trees outlive people, so our love would outlast us. Did you say yes? I said he was being sentimental, that trees die too. She walked to the tree, ran her fingers over the bark. Stupid girl. Should have said yes the first time he asked. Lydia found Maribel's car keys in the dirt, the cross and chain tangled in them. You dropped these. Maribel took them. The cross was my mother's. She died when I was 7. Foster care after that, until I aged out. You were a foster kid. Why do you think I chose you? We recognize our own kind. The ones who learned early that love is temporary, and you'd better not get used to it. A light came on in the guest house kitchen. Walter, making tea. Through the window. They could see him set out 2 cups. Wait. No one came. He drank alone, washed both cups. Put them away. Tomorrow he won't remember any of this, Maribel said. We will. Is that enough? Before Lydia could answer, another light came on. The storage shed behind the guest house. Someone was in there with the preserved roses, but Walter was in the kitchen, and they were both standing here. The flashlight beam swept across burlap-wrapped roots. Maribel grabbed Lydia's arm, fingers tight as a blood pressure cuff. Stay here. But they both moved toward the shed. Gravel crunched under their feet. The door stood open 6 inches. Inside, a figure bent over the roses. Patricia Hoffman turned, still in her nurse's uniform from the hospital, watering can in her hand. Patricia, Maribel's voice came out strangled. I come Tuesdays and Fridays for medical, Wednesdays and Sundays for these. She set down the can. Been helping Walter tend them for 2 years now. He never said. He forgets I come. Every time is the first time. Patricia moved to another bucket, checking moisture in the burlap. But the roses remember, that's what matters. March spring came late to Bend. Ice on the puddles until mid-March. Then sudden warmth that made everything happen at once. Crocuses, daffodils, cherry blossoms all in the same week. Lydia woke to Walter's knock. 6 in the morning now progressed from those 4:30 wake-ups. He stood at the door with coffee already made, percolator in hand like an offering. The roses, he said. Look. Green shoots pushed through the mulch Maribel had spread. All 18 plants they'd put in the ground, even the one they'd planted in December against all gardening sense, showed new growth. Tiny leaves unfurling like babies' fists. Maribel was already outside in her quilted housecoat. Kneeling in the dirt, she touched each shoot like checking a pulse. They lived, she kept saying. Lord have mercy. They all lived. Walter didn't remember planting them, but he knew they mattered. Started each morning checking their progress, writing observations in his journals. The writing was mostly symbols now. But the ritual remained. The routine had evolved over the months. Lydia worked from the dining room table Maribel had called Henderson Properties herself. Arranged everything with a donation to their charity fund. Polite extortion, but effective. Mornings went like this. Walter's pills crushed in strawberry jam on toast. He never noticed. Coffee at 7 sharp. Walk around the garden at 9 if his joints allowed. Lunch at noon, always soup and sandwich. Triangles for Emerald, who wasn't there. Afternoons sitting under the oak tree on the bench Maribel had installed. Walter would talk to whoever he thought Lydia was, sometimes Emerald, sometimes his mother, sometimes a student from his teaching days. She learned to be whoever he needed. Evenings Jeopardy at 7. Walter called out answers from the 1960s. Sometimes got current events right by pure luck. Bedtime at 8:30, earlier if confusion set in hard. The dog arrived in April. Maribel brought her home from the county shelter without warning, a husky mix with one blue eye, one brown. Her name's Luna, Maribel announced. Like that explained everything. Walter fell in love immediately. Didn't matter that he couldn't remember her name 5 minutes later. Luna followed him everywhere. Seemed to sense when the confusion hit worst. Would lean against his legs, solid and warm, anchoring him to the present. Good dog, he'd say, even when he'd forgotten the word for dog. Good girl. June. The roses bloomed like they'd been saving up for years. Explosions of red, pink, yellow, white. The December rose, Lydia's rose. Maribel called it bloomed last but biggest. White petals with pink edges, fragrant enough to smell from the porch. Patricia increased her visits, 3 times weekly, then 4. Walter had lost 20 pounds, sometimes forgot to swallow even with food in his mouth. It's progressing, Patricia told them after checking his vitals. Blood pressure low, heart rhythm irregular. Maybe 6 months, could be less. Should we? Maribel started. Hospice. Not yet. He's comfortable here. That's what matters. They hired another nurse for nights, Beth, young woman from their church who sang hymns while she worked. Walter liked the singing even when he couldn't remember words. One evening, rare clarity descended. Walter found them on the porch watching sunset paint Mount Bachelor gold. I'm dying, he said. Not afraid, just observing. We all are, Maribel replied. No, actually dying. Soon. I can feel it. He sat between them on the porch swing, Luna immediately at his feet. Like Emerald could feel it. Children know things. Are you scared? Of dying? No. Of leaving you both alone? Yes. He took their hands. His were cold, skin loose over bones like tissue paper over wire. Promise me something. Anything. Stay together. Not for me. For you. Family isn't blood, we proved that. It's choosing to stay. The clarity lasted 10 minutes. Then he asked who they were, but kept holding their hands, like his body remembered what his mind couldn't. September. Walter mostly slept now. Hospital bed in the living room facing the garden. The roses were on their third bloom, stronger than ever. Lydia had given up the Phoenix apartment. This was home now, complicated, difficult, real. Her few belongings mixed with Hawthorne antiques like they'd always been there. Maribel sold the pharmaceutical company, $63 million to a German firm, set up 3 foundations: Emerald Hope, Lydia's Light, and Walter's Tomorrow. Why 3? Lydia asked. Past, present, future. All the children we couldn't save, could save, will save. They interviewed scholarship recipients together, chose 18 for the first year, all foster children, aged out or aging out, full rides to state schools. Walter woke one afternoon completely clear, last gift of a failing mind. Lydia. She rushed to his bedside. I'm here. The roses bloomed, all of them, even the December rose. Good, that's good. He looked past her to Maribel. Mari, come here. Maribel approached like approaching communion rail. Careful, reverent. I loved you, he said. Love you, both tenses true. I know. Emerald. He stopped, swallowed. Emerald would be proud of what we became, even broken. He closed his eyes. Lydia thought he'd gone back to sleep. Then, the formula. What formula? For the fever reducer Cascade Pharmaceuticals uses. It's wrong. His breathing went ragged. Tell them check the binding proteins. Third molecule. That's why some children... And he was gone. Not dead, the confusion returned. But the professor, the scientist, the father who'd built his fortune on children's medicine, had delivered his last lecture. Maribel called Cascade immediately. They found the error. A tiny thing, but significant for children with certain genetic markers. Fixed it, recalled the drug, lives saved. Even dying. He was trying to save them, Maribel said. December 2025. 1 year later, Christmas Eve. Walter in his wheelchair by the tree. Lydia had decorated silver tinsel, white lights, star on top from Woolworth's circa 1962. He hadn't spoken in weeks but hummed sometimes. Christmas carols mostly, ones his mother would have sung. The doorbell rang. 17 people stood on the porch. The scholarship recipient Sarah Martinez, now a pediatric nurse. Marcus Chin, designing water systems. Angela Thompson with her teacher's certificate fresh from the state. All of them. We're his children, Sarah said simply. We should be here. They filled the house, cooking, laughing, telling stories of mysterious scholarships that appeared when hope was gone. Walter watched from his chair, confusion mixed with something deeper recognition, not of faces, but of feeling. Love in the room thick as morning fog. So many people, he whispered. First words in 3 weeks. Your family, Lydia told him. All your children. My children. He studied the faces. But Emerald. Other children. Ones you saved. Oh, he smiled. Good. They sang carols. Walter knew every word, music memory outlasting everything else. His voice thin but true, harmonizing from some deep place untouched by disease. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. At midnight, after everyone left, Lydia and Maribel sat with him by the tree. Luna sprawled across his feet. She never left him now, like she knew. Read it, Maribel said, handing Lydia an envelope. Stanford University, master's program in nonprofit management, full scholarship from the Hawthorne Family Foundation. I can't leave, not now. You can. You will. In spring. After. Maribel didn't finish. Didn't need to. Walter's hand moved slightly. Lydia caught it. He squeezed barely there, but real. Proud, he whispered. Outside, snow began. Rare for Bend, especially December. fat flakes like feathers from angel wings, covering the rose garden in white. "Look," Maribel said, "snow for Christmas." They watched it fall. Walter's breathing grew shallow but steady, peaceful, like he was waiting for something. At 7:17 a.m., December 26th, Walter Hawthorne stopped breathing. No struggle, just stopped, like setting down a heavy load after a long journey. Maribel closed his eyes. "Go to Emerald. Walt, she's been waiting." Patricia arrived within minutes they'd called her when his breathing changed. She checked for pulse, found none, noted the time. "He's gone peaceful," she said. "That's a blessing." Luna howled once long, mournful, then settled beside the empty chair. "Now what?" Lydia asked. "Now we plant more roses. Teach more children, live the life he'd want." Maribel walked to the window. Snow covered everything, roses, grass, the oak tree with their initials. Not the life he had, the one he'd want us to have. What's that? Full, complicated, real. She turned from the window. The service will be Wednesday. First Baptist. His whole Sunday school class will come. Spring again. The roses bloomed early. 18 bushes, now 36. They'd planted one for each scholarship recipient. The December rose had spread, sending up shoots everywhere. Lydia packed for Stanford. Not much clothes, books, the fountain pen Walter left her. "You'll come back," Maribel said. Not a question. "Every break. This is home." They stood in the garden. Luna, pregnant, now surprise gift from the neighbor's lab, dozed in the sun. New life everywhere. "He was right about the roots," Maribel said, hand on the December rose. "They go deeper than the hurt. Deeper than memory, too. Yes, that's the miracle. Isn't it love outlasts even forgetting?" The mail carrier brought acceptance letters. 43 foster children accepted to colleges for fall. The foundations were working. That evening, they sat on the porch swing, where 3 used to sit. Now 2, but not empty different, like a symphony missing one instrument but finding new harmony. "The days aren't cold anymore," Maribel said. Lydia understood. Not the weather Oregon was Oregon, but the days themselves. No longer cold with loneliness, but warm with chosen family. Complicated love. Roots that run deeper than memory. "Thank you," Lydia said. "For what?" "For choosing me, even if it started wrong." "Oh, child." Maribel took her hand. "We didn't choose you. God did. We just finally listened." The roses nodded in evening breeze. Somewhere, church bells rang 7 o'clock. Time for Jeopardy! They went inside, turned on the old RCA television. Alex Trebek's voice filled the room. They still watched reruns. For Walter, this was family. Not perfect, not forever, but real as roses that bloom after winter, sure as spring that always comes, faithful as love that chooses to stay. In the garden, the December rose opened another bloom, white petals with pink edges, beautiful, unlikely, true. Connecting hearts. Friends, I need to tell you something. After Walter passed, our little church in Bend became something unexpected. Those 17 scholarship children he and Maribel saved. They started their own fund. Every one of them pledges $50 monthly, not much. But together, it's enough for 2 more scholarships each year. They call it the December Rose Fund, after that impossible flower that bloomed against all sense. Last Sunday, Sarah Martinez brought her new baby to service. She named her Hope. Marcus Chen married Angela Thompson in our garden. Maribel walked Angela down the aisle since she had no family. The roses were in full bloom. You see, that's what Walter knew love isn't just between 2 people, or even 3. It spreads like rose roots underground, popping up in unexpected places, connecting strangers into family, turning December plantings into spring gardens. Disclaimer. This is a work of fiction inspired by universal themes of family, loss, and redemption, created solely for entertainment purposes. This story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. The medical conditions depicted are simplified for narrative purposes and should not be considered medical advice. Any financial or legal matters mentioned are fictional and should not be taken as professional guidance. This story aims to inspire hope and human connection,